Chapter 15.
Doctor Who?
She asked again. The alien in the impeccable, pristine white military uniform ignored her. Jade stared at the time traveler, decided now as the perfect opportunity for a complex overhaul of the cool antique steampunk console. Coral grew from the floor in fits and starts, unsealing gaskets, unscrewing things. Purge groaned overhead.
You are an insufficient operator.
All along the watchtower by Jim Hendrix began playing. Jade grinned. Traveler shook his head in exasperation.
Now we have to head into the null zone. Another dead spot in the time stream. A dimensional inversion.
Jade nodded. Cornelius scratched himself.
A space left after a war in the Medusa Cascade.
Traveler finished. His ancient eyes lit up. Tired, yet weird.
The Doctor.
Traveler sighed.
A renegade Time Lord from Gallifrey. Pretty damn famous, or infamous, whatnot.
For some reason, Jade found herself dismissing the stranger in white. Kept thinking of the destination. Thought it sounded badass.
Where are we going again?
She asked.
Darling ULV Strandon.
Traveler sighed, dismissed Jade's interruption.
In my day when I was in training, I would hear these stories. The Doctor was...
He stared off into space.
Really, the essence and reincarnation of the other. One of these ancient, powerful, founding High Lords, remember?
Jade replied. She fondled the fob watch.
Raslin, Omega. The other, a.k.a. the Doctor. A.k.a. not just a Time Lord.
The bizarre alien shouted an obscenity at the miniature golden dragon, who, as of yet, had never made a single sound beyond a snort or a sneeze. Jade laughed.
Ha ha! Freaking weirdo.
She knew it would end up being cute or irritating. There was no in-between for Traveler. Not through her eyes.
You remember, right?
Traveler said without looking at her. He intertwined his fingers in a bizarre pattern. Jade crossed her arms. She thought about how she needed to get something to eat. Maybe do some investigating. Figure out the legitimacy of this phone call. Find out what the hell the story really was with this watch. Aside from technical jargon, why did it always seem there was something she was overlooking? She needed to find out about Valentine. How was time closing in on them? Traveler just wouldn't give her a straight answer. He continued.
Auxiliary waveform relay, there.
He pointed to where he wanted Purge to move the section of his futuristic podium.
So when you say Doctor Who, it's sort of a big in-joke for those doofus High Lords.
The stranger in white articulated his hands in a strange pattern. A glowing holographic blueprint appeared in grinds all over the floor. Large chunks of silver and metal and porcelain flew through the air.
Hot bind the graviton pulse.
Traveler's eyes narrowed.
Like going up to the Prophet and asking him, Prophet who?
The heavy steel chrome and white machinery pieces hit the ground, slid about gracefully. Wires and heavy-duty cables sneaked through the immense control room. Some of the large coral appeared through the grates, worked like arms, some as tendrils, assembling, recalibrating. The articulated time machinery was rearranging itself along the neon blue pattern on the floor. Jade placed the necklace on herself. The ancient fob felt heavy, secure on her chest, like armor. Traveler grabbed a towel, wiped his hands with it, and threw the dirty rag on Cornelius's face.
Right,
he said.
This will take a while.
Jade snapped her fingers, drapesing away from the mechanical mess. A marble pendulum emerged in the air next to her. That's new. She grabbed her mirror, tossed it nearby to create her instant entrance. She already had plans to hit the cafe, then go to the park for a walk through the holographic rainforest. Maybe grab a soak in the hot tub. Perhaps do some archery or fencing, or painting or singing, or watch a movie. Jade sighed, then felt the watch. No. Purge. No. Jade thought about how now she had some real work to do, because Traveler cannot do this alone. They were in this together now. She was going to study the library, find some answers.
So, I've got some work to do here.
Traveler ran his fingers through his hair, then grinned as Jade stood at the threshold, held up a hand.
Because we're making a temporary vortex supersede continuum multiplier.
All to get to Bad Wolf Bay to meet the famous doctor?
Jade asked. Clearly, she had other things she wanted to be doing. Traveler nodded.
Hopefully we'll get some answers.
Jade held up crossed fingers, then disappeared into her room.
Why?
Asked Rose. She looked up at the doctor. Her doctor. He gazed down at her with his deep brown puppy eyes. She, of course, melted. You know I can't resist a good ghost. He dipped his chin as he smiled. His accent was thick Cockney.
And you know I can't be a part of it.
She pushed back a lock of her blonde hair. Darlig ULV Stranden, a barren coast of Norway, was exceptionally windy, devoid of color, all sand and tepid water, yet no waves. A sad, sad beach. A lonely place. Bad Wolf Bay. I know, Rose. Her doctor prolonged his vows. She gripped him tightly, and the pair entwined, ending with a kiss. Rose walked away. The meta-crisis doctor hybrid stared at a nearby cliff face. Even here, in this pocket dimension of unreality, time simply would not leave the doctor alone. He took a deep, sharp inhale through his nostrils. Wouldn't be long now. Jack Valentine sat on a throne made of metal and coral. His fist was glowing a bright red flame as ancient, unnatural sounds echoed throughout the dark chamber. They were emanating from the large old tomb on his lap. A man knelt before him, in chains, glowing crimson chains, tight, suffocating, leeching chains. He closed the book, smiled wickedly. Valentine opened his hand and the fire extinguished. The prisoner's chains dimmed. All became quiet in the Sidrat, Valentine's castle, except for the crackling in the main fireplace. In the vast throne room, hard coral and stone and iron fitted everywhere. The enormous medieval chamber was decoratively lit by torches mounted on the walls. Above every torch, the head of a Time Lord, stuffed and mounted, proudly. To his left, Valentine patted his faithful enforcer, Kerrigan, a 9-foot-tall behemoth of muscle covered in dense, abnormal tight hide with a wolf's head. His chrono-polymorph construct, his pet wolf. Kane stood at Valentine's right, an angel, Valentine's indentured angel. His wings were folded in, and he covered his face with his hands, weeping, waiting. The traditional posture of his almost endless army of wrathful angels. Valentine leaned forward and peered at his prisoner, the Victorian time traveler with the curly brown hair. The Valentine simply referred to his new trophy as 8. The Time Lord stared up at Jack. You can't keep this up forever. I'm locked because of the Time War. I can do this all day. This one was powerful. Overflowing with extemporaneous Ardtron energy, Sidrat needed a break from the feasting. He was almost full. Valentine never removed the garish, semi-psychotic smile from his face as he stood. He looked down on the time-traveling foreigner with spite, pulled out a coin. The chains loosened, then evaporated. 8 stood, rubbing his wrists, unsure of what would happen next. The High Lord met Jake's eyes. Valentine saw the pitiful old traveler jump as he unfolded his entire robe. The sacred embossed vestment of the President of Gallifrey. Not too difficult of a procurement. Jack had loved seeing the doctor's pained expression the last few hours as he stared at it. While being sapped of all chrono-relevance, and being added to Valentine's own. Jack tossed a coin. 8 caught it. Valentine closed his fist and lost the grin. He had exploded into electricity. The coin began glowing in 8's hand. The doctor looked up and shouted, "No!" before disappearing in a burst of cerulean light. 8 was gone. Valentine walked behind his throne to a fantastical, elaborate tapestry. It depicted his empire. He shot a blast at it from his fist, enveloping it into blue flame. The flame swirled in a circle, creating a portal. A dark silhouette emerged, short, thin, absorbing the light around it, as if it were a miniature black hole. It turned, as if to face him, if it had a face. My own paradox echo. Valentine licked his lips. Go, dearest. Do your worst. He sucked the flame from the giant Merle into his fist, crushing it down until it changed color, becoming a flowing red and purple. Valentine closed his eyes, spun around, and opened his fist. It exploded outward across the room into 3 separate blasts. 3 portals emerged, crackling fissures in time. One to Marseille, France in early 18th century. One to a small, lonely apartment in New York in the Depression era. One to a graveyard in Illinois in the late 20th century. The void silhouette held out its hand. Valentine dropped a coin, and the dark creature split, becoming 3, and disappearing into the time stream. Light recoiled in the Sidrat, with a soundless burst. A vacuum of quiet pervaded. Jack tore down the tapestry, revealing a large octagonal screen. He snapped his fingers. Just what he wanted to see. A young girl being murdered in New York. A coin spilling from her fingers and rolling off. A paranormal detective finds it temporarily trapped in a perpetual digression vortex loop. A young girl's ghost, trapped in time. And she accidentally traps a Time Lord. Valentine switches the view. A young girl in a graveyard, walking alone, repeating the same pattern, not seeing the angel he is sending after her, stalking her day after day. She is almost trapped, saved by an interloper. Shit. Ah, never mind. Jack stroked his chin, one eyebrow raising. He watched on the screen. The black void silhouette appeared. Jack stared, intrigued, looking at it from behind, sitting on the steps. Jack shrugged. Close enough. He continued to watch, as on the steps, in the past, the interloper in white handed Jade the coin. Valentine smiled. Time. Ah, yes. Now he had time. He placed his hand on the throne, and with a great rumble, it slowly sank into the floor. Great blast of orange and bright yellow energy exploded from the opening. A flame emerged, swirling, slowing. It solidified into a bright amber control console, made of alternating yellow and orange and red coral, occasionally slithering out, or expelling steam. Won't be much longer, Valentine assured his minions. He slid forward a crimson-colored crystal lever. The Sidrat dematerialized. The Metacrisis hybrid doctor placed his hands in his pockets. He wore his skinny blue pinstripe suit. Seemed appropriate. Last time he wore it, it was when he bid his real self goodbye. Even fixed up his hair a bit. He was still the doctor after all. And he didn't care if his look was geek shadeekdom, or mod, or hipster. It worked for him, damn it. It didn't matter that this was a one-off human body. He still possessed the intellect and the memories of the doctor. Could run circles around Einstein and Hawking while saving the entire planet of the Ood and tying his sand shoes. Simultaneously, he smiled privately. Okay, so the arrogance was a distinctly human trait. He took care of his looks because he knew he was, well, fantastic. Thank God, Rose was always there to keep him in check. Call him Dr. Light, and so forth. Now, wait. He felt something in his pockets. That wasn't there before. Just a quarter or something. He felt the year. 2014. Strange. That wasn't there before. Suddenly, Dr. Light had a small embolism in the brain, where new memories flooded. Unwanted. He gripped his temple. This coin, he found. This coin when he was trapped on Earth in his 8th life. A girl's ghost. What did that have to do with... Jade sat in her room, fingers racing across 2 pink screens. On one screen was a wraithful angel. She flipped through the various pictures of them. They all had the same face. Jack Valentine's face. Only etched in stone and horrifying. Going to eat you. The other screen presented information about the historical time magician, temporal warlock named Jack Valentine. His picture always remained the same. A flesh and blood wraithful angel. Strong jaw, handsome, dark eyes, wavy hair. Perhaps a bit smug and dangerous looking. Jade couldn't seem to get a grip on the backstory, though. She would read it, and it would change right in front of her eyes. Words would regroup, sometimes contradicting themselves right in front of her.
Purge?
She intoned loudly. A soft echo from the intercom in the bathroom.
Jack Valentine, the historical entity, is becoming entwined in a corneal fissure, compensating.
Jade watched the narrative on the screen change, only to very basic, firm fragments. Purge stated overhead.
Jack Valentine, supernatural investigator, freelance paranormal detective, attuned to corneal energies and distempers, a time-sensitive, same as you, Jade, existed in early 1900s, 1930s, New York, disappeared after beginning investigation into murder of...
The screen went black. Jade slapped a flat, hollow projection.
Compensating,
Purge replied. The picture came back to life. There was a picture of Jade, when she was 17. On the floor. Blood. Dead. No. Jade looked closer. Someone identical to her. Her doppelganger. She was looking at really old crime scene photos. Jade flipped through them on the pink projection. Zoomed in. The stamps on the faded, worn photographs were from New York Police Department, from 1927. Purge announced in a soft, yet artificial voice.
Jack Valentine disappeared, became a temporal marauder. This threat became manifest after he met the 8th Doctor while investigating your death.
Jade shuddered, felt her heart beat against the antique fob watch.
You have just witnessed the birth of a paradox.